What's up, people? One Nut Punch here. So I picked up the game Wildfrost for about $20 on Steam. And my experience playing it is that I find it enjoyable. I like the art style, like the gameplay, I like the mechanics of the actual game. It is a roguelike, not early access, full release, but it's got some pretty fun mechanics here, so let's go ahead and talk about it. The main thing with this game is that it's an auto battler, meaning that your characters or your units there will attack each other. And they have different abilities, different skills, and different synergies when they help each other out. Then you have your hand that will do different things like snowball or snow stick will freeze the person and stop their counter from going down, which essentially their counter is when they are able to attack you. And that is for your units and their units. If the counter reaches 0, they will do an attack, and then after that will refresh back to their normal counter. The other thing is that some of these cards will be healing, other cards will be attack damage, or buffs for your units as well as the creatures that you get. If you get these other creatures, you can keep them in front of your leader, which if your leader dies, the game is over. So essentially, you are the leader of the deck. And a lot of these people on the mixed reviews or Steam posts are crying and complaining about the game being too difficult because of the fact it's an auto battler. I don't see that at all, and I do see that you can make it a lot more enjoyable as well as easier for you by playing the mechanics. If people can read, if people can understand how the game works, then they wouldn't have much of an issue. For example, in the battle phase of the game, you're able to go to the bottom portion or the top portion of these two rows. And they're mostly there to deal with the top units or the bottom units. Then you have, of course, your leader that does its own thing, whether it has barrage or poison, and then their own counter. If your unit, like your companion, dies, then they are essentially injured. And the only way they can heal their injury is if you keep them in your hand or don't play them on the field and have them die immediately. As long as they survive the next turn, then they are able to heal from that injury. But I can see where it could be obnoxious or harder if you don't have any units to protect your leader, and instead there's just injured units and they die instantaneously from bosses or even the minions that you'd see that are harder than some of the bosses in the game, which is another point I'll say right now. If you're talking about units in this game that are difficult, I wouldn't say that any of the bosses are real pushovers compared to some of the normal units that have like 9 plus, 10 plus, 12 plus damage and instantly smack all the things in your row in one go, especially if you have something called Barrage, which attacks all units in one row. Then, of course, you have your roguelike elements to where you can choose different areas such as the Muncher, which you can give him stuff, and I think he gives you stuff back by having to eat your different cards that you don't want, as well as a store called the Woolly Snail, where you're able to go buy additional cards for your deck and these things called charms that allow you to equip onto your creatures or the leader of your character. The thing with the charms is that you cannot take them off once you put it on. Another thing about them is that they are, besides permanent, one charm per character or one charm per card. Because when I tried to put on two different charms that might be pretty good synergy, it didn't work out and they would flip upside down so you couldn't pick it. Then they have the 3 additional cards that have one that's a sale, and then one card in the bottom as well as an item you could pick, which currently right now I didn't choose, called the Crown. And then, of course, you see here called the Frenzy Charm that activates multiple times. So it's a nice change of pace to be able to try different cards and being able to fight different units. Not to mention that when you pick your leaders in the start of the game, they are different names and different abilities that you could choose from. I don't know if it's a wide variety, but it's a decent variety nonetheless to try out the different characters, as well as have their name put in a journal, and if they die, then it's marked out, and then they continue on the journey of somebody else. But you have your boss fights, you have your normal fights, and like I said earlier, when it comes down to the actual gameplay mechanic, you have your hand in the bottom portion of the screen, you have your draw pile on the left, you have your chest, you have your currency, and on the right-hand side, you have this recall, or not recall, a bell. And what it will do is it will take your discard pile and shuffle back into your hand, or your deck, and then be able to draw another hand from it. And this is a cooldown timer, as you see here. Once the 2 turns are gone, I could press that button and get another hand. Then you have, of course, the counters on the bottom portion of the cards. Every so often, when a card attacks, it'll refresh and go back to the full counter. This is the same thing for the enemy units. And essentially, if I use something called Snow Stick or Snowball, anything that has that specific effect, it stops the counter, freezes it, and it can't go anymore, even if they have a cooldown reduction card like it was, I think it's called Sunstick, which reduces your countdown timer by 2. Again, same thing with you. If your leader's frozen, you can't be able to reduce the countdown timer. What I'm saying about this game is this. Is it difficult? Of course. Most auto battlers are. Is it worth $20? It might be a little bit too high, but I still find it pretty damn enjoyable. Not to mention, it does have daily voyages, which you can only do 1 per day, kind of like Monster Train, and they are, of course, difficult. But that being said, I still think that this game is definitely worth checking out. I love the art style. I like the sounds. I like the roguelike elements in the game. I like the whole fact that you can change different leaders with different names and have them in a journal to where if they do die, they're gone for good. It's a very fun game, and I do personally enjoy it. But anyway, I've been One Nut Punch, and this has been another video. Like I said beforehand, when it comes down to the reviews of the actual game, I wouldn't worry about it. It just looks like a lot of people are crying that the game's too difficult for them. And I played Fights in Tight Spaces and Trials of Fire, and those games are tougher than this. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching.